Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fans. Welcome to another edition of Third Degree, the podcast. Hi, my name is Peter, and with me today, my two very good friends. First, Dan Crooke. Hello, Dan. How are you?
Hello, Peter. Much better than last week. Thank you. How are you?
You sound much better, and you don't have that giant metal show going on outside your window. So this is much better.
That's true. The fake Germans have been sent packing.
Excellent. And, of course, your hero and mine, founder and co-editor of thirddegree.net and from the Dallas Morning News, Buzz Carrick. Hello, Buzzard. Welcome.
Hello, Peter. Thanks for having me on. I'm calling in today from Cloud 9, where I still am after the crazy results of last night.
Which result is that?
Well, all of them. All the crazy results in MLS of teams losing at home and people tying games and basically giving Dallas a backdoor into the playoffs. It's fun.
It is fun, but I got to tell you, I'm a little put out by all of it.
All right. Why are you put out?
Well, because as we saw today, there's all these people scribing up machinations of how FC Dallas can get into the playoffs, and it just seems so straightforward obvious to me that how about we just have the novel concept of winning our last two games and not worrying about all this other shit.
Well, that's certainly true. They're definitely in a position now that if they win out, they're in. In fact, if they tie and win, then they're in. So, sometimes you do things like that because people enjoy those scenarios and those magic numbers and that kind of stuff. Some people do. So, it was still fun to scoreboard watch last night and watch everything fall in Dallas's favor. So that was fun, but you're right. You're totally right. Take care of your business and win, and you're in. It's easy.
Yeah, so here we stand. We have 2 games left in the season, and probably, to your point, Buzz, feeling much better about what happened on Sunday afternoon when NYCFC came to town, scored within the very first minute of the game, and everything looked very doom and gloom. Somehow, and we'll talk about this in more detail, the team fights back to at least get a draw in that game, but it was easy to come away from that game thinking, oh, man, they've done it again. They're going to screw it up and leave it to literally the last thing. But now it's not even complete. Now that's been kind of taken out of their hands. I mean, they can win both games and go on easy, and they could even arguably lose both games and still get into the playoffs.
Well, that would be something. It's there's so much parity in the West. Even the Colorado Rapids could still technically get in, which is amazing to me. And Salt Lake, which is like 5 points ahead, could still lose and not get in. So there's an absurd amount of chaos going on, and on that level, it's been kind of fun to try and keep up with it. It's so crazy. For Dallas, it remains simple though. You can win and you can get in, and this is a club that likes to blow it, and they're going up against Colorado, who likes to knock Dallas out, and they're going up against Kansas City, who likes to knock Dallas out. So there's a lot of work left to be done, because if you don't take care of your own business, you will be out. There's 5 teams that are still potentially in, so you can't just walk in with nothing. You got to win your way in still.
All right, we'll get into the scenarios here in a little bit. Let's talk about Sunday evening. Game did not start well, but I will just go ahead and dive into the topic du jour, which is the thing that is making me nuts, is the fact that, at least from my standpoint, it seems that the concept of not starting your best player ended up proving itself out when Cervania had to go off due to the head injury, which is a whole other topic we should talk about. And Paxton Pomykal goes in and immediately within 45 seconds wins a ball, runs, sprints 80 yards, and puts the team's first shot on goal, and ultimately ends up salvaging the game for the team with a pretty fantastic assist. Why didn't Paxton start the game?
Well, as Lucci told me on Wednesday, Paxton was not cleared to train last week until Friday. And Lucci has, I'm going to call it an unofficial rule because it's not really a rule. He just has a belief that if you don't participate in the game planning and the training and the exercises to replicate the other team and such, at least over the last 2 or 3 days of the week, then you're not up for starting. In particular, in Paxton's case, if you're not physically cleared for more than a day, he's not going to put you in. But he was physically cleared enough, in Lucci's opinion, to be on the bench. So It's perfectly fair to disagree with those that concept, but Lucci really believes it, and so that's the decision he made, and it ended up being a case where Paxton himself was surprised he got in. And it was only 20 minutes difference between what he played and the actual complete game, and Paxton post game talked about how it took him 30 minutes to get loose and warmed up because of the discomfort he's having. He needed the adrenaline to get through that, and excuse me, that's a bigger concept for Paxton too, in terms of his development going forward, is learning how to play through discomfort, because in these long grinding seasons, you're going to have discomfort, and that's part of being a pro and being a big part of a big team like he is, an MVP level player. So that's why he didn't start, and whether you buy it or not, that's Lucci's belief, and that's the reason he went the way he went.
Yeah, I have so many feelings and thoughts about it, and he's obviously a head coach of a Major League Soccer team, and I'm not. I'm just an idiot who talks on a podcast. But it seemed to me very quickly that Paxton was more than ready to go for the game, and obviously if he had been starting, he would have had a completely different set of warm-up and a completely different adrenaline level, and instead of being kind of foisted into a game on a moment's notice, he would have been properly prepared to get into the game. And while I understand rules are rules and things like that, when you're trying to fight for a playoff spot, it seems like a really, really weird time to hold fast and true to something like that when you're fighting for a playoff spot. But again, Dan and Clark decided to give him the coaching gig and not anybody else.
Yeah, and on some level, I would agree with you that particularly this late in the season, right, we should know the team concepts by now, and certainly when Paxton is one of your best players, and he is a young guy, I question myself, as everybody else did, how, if you're healthy enough for the bench, you're healthy enough to start. Lucci is a young coach, and this is the way he believes it should be, and I'm not necessarily trying to defend that concept. I'm just offering why he thinks it is the case. I like you, probably would have liked to have seen Paxton start for Badji on the left wing, because right now I believe when he's healthy, I think the Acosta-Cervania combo is a must. So it's trying to figure. Yeah, you're trying to fix that Jesus Paxton dilemma of 10 left wing, whatever. Get Badji out of the game. I'm with you on that. So what you and I would do is different than obviously what Lucci's going to do. And I'm at the point where I'm trying to get from Lucci, why do you believe this? What do you do? Why are you making the choices the way you make? So I can explain them. We can talk about them. And we might not agree, but it is kind of his policy, and he's stuck with it this season when guys aren't available from, Thursday, Friday, at least sometimes even Wednesday. It's not enough. You're not going to start. So
one thing you've got to consider is that when they're making that assessment of whether Paxton is ready to start, they are talking about the left wing. They're talking about end-to-end sprinting for 90 minutes, which with that hip flexor is, a bit more of a consideration than the, that second six role that he ended up playing for most of the game.
Well, on the heels of the other recent results and not starting Paxton and keeping Jesus on, and, to be fair, Jesus had a much better game against New York than he had in the two previous outings. But again, as the idea was a few weeks ago, it wasn't necessarily trying to displace Jesus from his position. It was more about getting Badji off the field. And I don't know if there's anything else we can say about Dominic Badji. If you want to have a criticism about Lucci, maybe it's not that he's not starting Paxton. Maybe that he continues for some reason to start Dominic Badji, who I don't know. I don't know, Buzz. What's the story there?
Yeah, that one I don't understand myself. I think there's a mismatch in style. And even if you like the way Badji executes, which I don't, there's a mismatch in style between the rest of the team and Badji. They don't need the over-the-top component from Badji. They get it from Barrios. So it's not that. I don't. Sometimes I'm at a loss for that choice. I mean, up until now, Santiago Mascara has been hurt or not great, but lately he's looked pretty sharp when he's come in. So I wonder why that hasn't been a choice. I wonder, like you, why he has not considered Paxton. This is the first week actually that I saw Paxton take reps in a left wing type position in the drills. So I think there's definitely that consideration now. Why there hasn't been to this point. Maybe now that he's 100% convinced that Jesus Ferreira is the answer in the middle. Now it's like, okay, I can get Paxton on somewhere else. That left wing has been a problem the whole season. So other than just not changing stuff just to change it, maybe he feels like Badji deserves a run for some reason. But I mean, there is the interactivity with him and with Badji and Andresic, who are pals and buddies, and maybe he feels like those guys work well together. Perhaps I'm reaching for a reason now at this point. I know that's a stretch, but man, I don't know.
They work extremely well together on social media, on the field,
and they make one whole player between them.
Yeah. Goodness.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
All right, so then that leads me to probably the first question I should have asked, which is, considering how the last few games had gone, the dire situation this team is in, is there any explanation for how you let a team score on you on your home field in less than a minute? Like, how do you come out so flat-footed? Because that's not just Dominic Badji's fault, right?
No.
I mean, it also, you can squarely put equal fault on everybody's favorite player, Ryan Hollingshead.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look at that clip specifically, Badji doesn't even pretend to play defense, and Ryan half-asses it. They just stand there and let those balls get played in. And Hedges gets beat to the ball, but at least Hedges is playing full out and making a hell of an effort to get to it. It just doesn't. But you can't let people have free service in from the wing. And overall, just to come out with that mentality when you're in a playoff crunch, I don't understand it. It's like it's just maybe they're just so confident in their home form. They just, with having not lost in 9 or whatever it is, they're just like, we're good at home. This is no problem. But man, New York's the best team in the East. So what are they doing? I don't understand that at all.
Do you have any sense of where the collective roster is in their attitude towards Lucci as a coach?
Yeah, I feel like for the most part, I get impressions from guys that they like the way that Lucci wants to play. They like the tactics of it. They like the possession of it. They like the press. I think, like any of us that talk to Lucci extensively, he gets because he's a teacher, right? In his background, he gets a little lectury and long-winded. So I think from time to time, guys maybe get a little glassy-eyed, but I don't pick up on any big locker room disconnect or anything like that. I mean, any guy that's not playing, of course, is like rah rah rah, but. Anyone that happens for any coach on every team. Guys that don't play are grumbling, but in the overall sense of a thing, I'm not picking up on any, losing the locker room kind of disconnect or anything. I think most people really like Lucci, and this team is full of guys that really like each other. They're all really positive. We've talked before about the lack of maybe a hard man in this team because they're all really super nice people. I think they all listen to Lucci, except for when maybe he gets a little long-winded and preachy. But other than that, I think they all buy into his system.
I mean, I feel like when you hear the players talk, there's a lot of respect in the tone and the words they use. Speaking to Paxton after the game, he definitely had no issues with any instructions that Lucci gave him, or having him play a different role in Seattle to against New York City. Whether there ends up being like a young-old divide in the locker room, just with players who've come through with Lucci and players who haven't. That's always a possibility over time, but certainly not in these early stages.
Well, so they did fight back and end up tying the score and getting a point out of the game, and that's at least something. And it's also another goal for Andresic. So, and by the way, did I hear correctly that he wasn't in the best of moods after the game?
It's. I don't know if part of it's coming from Europe where there is no locker room access. The locker room is sacred. The even like the owners won't go in the locker room. To coming over here where, everyone just walks in. I'm sure there's a level of discomfort there, but yeah, he's got a bit of an attitude lately, and it's It's not great.
What, he started bagging goals and now suddenly he can be a jerk to everybody?
It's just, I don't know if that's the way he feels about it. But.
Well, look, I get it. If you come from a place where your locker room is your team, the team and the roster's safe space, and you suddenly move over to the United States, and not only are there men in there while you're naked and vulnerable, there's also women and children. It's a weird scene. As a guy who not regularly visits locker rooms, I to this day still, after all these years, find it extremely odd. And I can imagine, if you're coming from a foreign country where you've never had to do that, why it's really off-putting.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this kind of the issue is, like, you know, we either have mixed zones or we have locker room access. Mixed zones, players get rushed to get dressed, they get hurried out, they have to be there at a certain time because, you know, people have deadlines. I had MLS on my case. Hey, what's going on? Why haven't you filed your story yet? And I was like, sorry, I did the New York City locker room. I waited around for 20 minutes and then FC Dallas was available.
Yeah.
Normally, if I do the away team, I miss the home team.
If they got rid of the locker room access and just did mix zones, I would be totally 100,000% cool with that, because I'm not even a player, and I find that completely the most bizarre scene. I get on the few occasions I go down there. I never have figured out how anybody puts up with that. But I'm also an only child and don't like to be naked around people, so.
No, 100%. Like him, you know, coming from Europe, to me it's weird because it's like the sacred space. And just 15 minutes in, anyone with a pass can just wander around and do what they want. It's so weird.
Yeah. Okay, so since you were in there, what was the general reaction from the guys about the game and how it started, how it ended? Were they all upset about it, down, elated, happy? You know what?
And everyone was visibly down. Everyone wanted 3 points. I don't think anyone was happy with that start. I don't think anyone was happy with the fact that New York were able to press the way they did for the first 30 minutes until Tinnerholm went off, and then their entire game plan fell apart. Yeah, neither team were happy. Even speaking to New York, the coach, Tyrone, you know, he said, one of the guys from the New York radio station was like, hey, do you feel you're kind of fortunate to walk away with a point? He said, well, no, we should have scored 4 goals in the first 30 minutes. Just because maybe they should have scored 4 goals in the next 60 minutes doesn't mean I feel fortunate.
That's a very, very good point, yeah.
You know, I think everyone was kind of, both sides felt like they'd lost points.
Very weird game, and we should also talk about the incident between Tinderholm and Cervania, which, man, does that not raise all sorts of questions about player safety and what the actual concussion protocol is, and who in the hell is running this thing? Because it was, for somebody watching this on television, it was as plain as day that neither one of those players should have ever stepped back on the field.
So, in the stadium, I mean, I was on TV. You don't kind of get the full picture. You get the close-ups on the players being evaluated, and you know, clearly you could see Tracy, the athletic trainer, shining the light in Brandon's eyes. You know, and he's off in his own little world. They're both wobbling off. Lucci has Paxton get his jersey on. The team administrator has the paper in his hand, ready to give to the 4th official for the sub to bring Paxton on. Tracy, when they're on the sideline, Tracy visibly, he sort of, puts his hand across, the whole hand across your throat thing, like, no, you're done, that's it, you're done.
Tracy being the FC Dallas trainer.
Yes.
Okay.
Guy you always see running on the field with the little backpack and the gloves. He clearly says, no, your day is done. Yeah, that's it. Now, the MLS doctor hadn't looked at either player at this point, which was kind of weird. The 4th official just kind of lets him go on, which is even weirder. You know, they're both wobbling about. Neither of them, they both clearly should be subbed at this point.
On television, and I don't know if either of you saw this, you could literally see the knot on Tinderholm's forehead about the size of a golf ball on television. And I'm freaked out to hear, because this is a part of the story I hadn't heard. How in the world had the unbiased league-appointed physician not inspected both of those guys before they were allowed to go back on the field?
Your guess is as good as mine. I mean, he finally started to once they both collapsed. But it was bizarre.
That's ridiculous.
When I was speaking to Torrin, the NYC coach, he said, "Look, this is a weird situation, and I'm not going on a rant, but MLS needs to figure this out.
Well,
is the referee supposed to stop the game? Because all I can go by is my guy's telling me he's okay to go, but if there's a doctor there, why isn't the doctor saying, his professional opinion?"
I'm going to put some of this on Lucci and some of this on Torrent as well and their staff, because, you can't. Nobody ever should go by a player telling you he's okay. Every good athlete, every competitor is going to say, "Yeah, I'm okay," short of them passing out and falling down on the ground. We all know that. We've heard that story 1,000 times, and I don't mean to sound like Taylor Twellman here, but boy, if there was ever a case where everybody was at fault in this situation, this was absolutely it. And to hear that the league physician didn't even look at either one of those cats before they went back on the field, man, that's near criminal in my opinion.
So, I mean, you're right. The problem is you can't force the player off. Sarri found that out last year with Chelsea when he tried to take Kepa out in one of the cup finals.
But they're on the sideline. How do you let them back on the field?
I mean, short of physically restraining them?
No, you sub them. You call Paxton or Jacori and you go, "You're not going back on the field, son. We're subbing you out." I mean,
that's what they did, and he's just waved on by the fourth official. So it's like there's who ultimately has the authority. Can the referee say, "No, you are clearly done. Get the hell off. I'm stopping the game until you go"? It's for all the little checks and the little things they put in place, they never quite put the responsibility on anyone or the authority. Should the MLS doctor be able to say to the ref, "This game stops until he comes off the field because he's a danger to himself"? Because that's how it should be.
Well, I would think at the end of the day, the person that runs the team, the manager, in this case Lucci and Tarrant, both of those guys should have the singular and only say of who does and doesn't get on that field. It's not up to the player. It's not up to the trainer. It's up to them ultimately as to what happens. And if the trainer told Lucci he's done, how Lucci let Cervania make the decision to go back on the field is
he
what
didn't.
is. What do you mean?
That's the point. Cervania didn't give him the chance to make the decision. They'd already pulled Paxton. Paxton's getting ready. Cervania just ran back on and the referee starts the game again. The coaches can't stop the game.
Maybe I'm missing. Maybe I'm missing how all of this went down or something. It seems easy to me that Lucci goes over there, grabs Brandon's arm, and says, "No, you're not going back out there." I don't know. Buzz, is there some aspect of this that I'm missing out on, or?
Well, just that that Lucci at that point obviously deferred to his player, which he shouldn't have. I mean, from the stands, I was sitting with my wife, and the amount of time both those guys were down on the ground, I thought, "Oh, this is a a bad expression, no-brainer. When two guys are down that long, they're both done. They're both going to be subbed out immediately." And they let them go on and play, and I thought, this is ridiculous. Neither one of those guys should be in there. And they basically let them run until they got so dizzy they fell over. So, I mean, it's a multiple-tier failure. And in the end, both coaches failed their player by letting their player dictate that they should stay in. I agree with you that there needs to be some accountability there. The league needs to fix the rules and all that kind of crap. But in the end, your coach is standing there. You saw what just happened as a coach. It's not like it's his ankle. He's like, "I'm going to run it off." It's his brain, right? You got to know the difference and understand that when your trainer said, no, he's done, he should have been done.
Yeah. If what you're saying, Dan, is that Lucci had a Pax ready to go and he had his back turned, and while he was trying to get Pax ready, Brandon ran back on the field, I get that part. I mean, I guess there isn't anything he can do about that. But what I don't understand is why he didn't immediately substitute Cervania at the next stoppage of play.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I just in him running back on, there's not a lot that Lucci can do in that moment because, like you say, his back is turned. He's giving Paxton instructions while Paxton's putting his shin guards in, and
so I've read that Tinderholm didn't play against Atlanta last night, and clearly they didn't need him. What is Brandon's situation? Is he out for the game against Colorado?
As of Wednesday, he was still in percussion protocol, but Lucci
Concussion
said
protocol?
Yeah, what did I say? Percussion?
You said
like he's a drummer.
Yeah, he's just banging some drums. He's having the time of his life with John Leonard.
He's joining the drum line. He's going down to the.
He exploded like the Spinal Tap.
No, sorry. He was in concussion protocol. Good Lord.
Cocoon.
Now you got me thinking about it. As of Wednesday, but Lucci says they expect him to be cleared by the end of the week. But that's the thing about concussions. I almost said it again. Is you never know. Sometimes they linger longer than you expect them to. I mean, that's what happened to Ugo Emalu. It's just it never cleared up. It's like he had the mild symptoms,
and Zach
Lloyd. And they just kept going, and then all of a sudden your career's over. So, by normal reactions, Brandon should be cleared by this weekend. Again, via Lucci, the way he works, if it's Thursday or Friday, then Brandon's not going to play. But if it was Wednesday and he does train Thursday or Friday, then he should be fine. I don't know the answer because I did not get out there today. But I would doubt that you would see Brandon this weekend, even if he does get cleared, just out of precaution at this point, and getting a player cleared late in the week. And actually, we need to cross our fingers that he really does come through it okay, because that's the scary part about concussions is you never really know.
Yeah.
Well, particularly at that age as well, when really things are still at the tail end of development.
Brandon still has a soft spot on the top of his head. He's so young.
Yeah.
It's funny you brought up Ugo and I mentioned Zach because in the last, 18 months, I've actually run into both of those guys independently of each other. Just kind of randomly through life, and had just enough time to kind of visit with them and hear their story. And I'll be the first to admit I'm one of those guys that got really, really burned out on Taylor Twellman's ranting and raving about concussions, and found it to be really kind of annoying, and got wow, dude, you're really beating a dead horse. But after hearing Ugo and Zach even ever so briefly describe what they've gone through with their concussion situations, I really gleaned a new perspective on that injury and an appreciation for why Taylor is so passionate about it. I may not always agree with about how he goes about it, but I get why he's that way now. And so, yeah, to your point, Buzz, maybe it is probably best that Brandon takes an extra week off.
Well, the scary thing is with that is it's not just, you bang your ankle, do your hamstring or something. It's an injury that affects you for soccer activities. I remember with Zach Lloyd and again with Bakary Samari when he came and got a concussion in practice and then never played for FC Dallas or anyone else ever again.
No, that's the one that we always forget about. That's right.
But the daily update wasn't like, he's in the protocol. It's he's not sleeping. He can't sleep at night with this.
I'm telling you,
that's a 24-hour thing. That's scary.
We've actually, Andy and I have talked about having Ugo and or Zach on the show to talk about it, because if they were willing to do it, because once you hear Ugo in particular, Zach doesn't talk about it quite in the way that Ugo does. Maybe because Ugo's is a little further in the distance. It's a frightening set of symptoms and pain and just awfulness that I can't imagine. So. And maybe that's why, in particular, for this club, I'm so surprised, and maybe this is a byproduct of everybody changing over since those incidents happened. I was so surprised to find out how all of that went down on Sunday, because I would think of, for one club in particular, that it's had 3 players lose their careers over concussions. They'd be a little bit more in tune with protocol and handling it properly, because they certainly didn't do that on Sunday, and shame on them for that.
I mean, you'd almost expect Hedges to pull Sylvania aside, because he's had a couple of those now.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so the draw result, and I guess my one question for both of you guys: do you feel like that the draw was better than they deserved, exactly what they deserved, or less than they deserved from that game?
Well, I think if you take out the first initial start of the game, I think it was worse than they deserved. The initial goal early on was obviously what makes it be what they deserve, because you can't start like that and get deserve a win. But the adjustments and the changes meant over the majority of the game that they looked the better team. So I'm going to say slightly hard done by in the bigger picture, but actually lucky to get it considering the way it started.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to assess just with that. For that first 30 minutes, New York City's press was something Dallas couldn't deal with. They couldn't build up. They couldn't press New York City either. Once Lucci made those adjustments and kind of sat the midfield back a little more and switched things up, New York didn't have an answer for it. But if things go differently and that's Watford playing Man City and it's 4-0 after 20 minutes, you're not coming back from that.
Yeah. All right, so crazy how things tend to come together. And again, we in a perfect world, we'd like to see the good guys win their last two games. But now they have to go to Denver, and they have to play a Colorado team who, looky there, they are winners of 4 of their last 5. Am I saying that correct, Buzz?
It was 4 or 5. Now I think it's 5 of 6, I think.
Yeah, so this is an interesting turn of events because the Rapids themselves, albeit an extremely long set of odds, still have a little bit of space left open for them to make the playoffs, and they certainly will be fighting tooth and nail for more than just the fact of getting into the playoffs. Colorado always loves to spoil the party for Dallas.
Yeah, this is a team that has knocked Dallas out of the playoffs many times, has eliminated them at the last game of the season a couple of times. There's some Kellen Acosta up there, loves to play well against Dallas. So, they're still alive. This is not going to be an easy game by any stretch of imagination. If you think you're the playoff team, then obviously you expect to get a result. But Mile High is a tough place to play. And that team is under the new coach. This is beyond now just a new coach bump. This is a team that's playing some of the best soccer in MLS right now. So Dallas has got their work cut out for them in that regard.
So, assuming Cervagna's out, Buzz, do you have any kind of thoughts as to how you think Lucci will line the team up? And please tell me he's not throwing Badji back out there again. Please, God, please tell me no Badji. Although it is Badji's former team, so maybe.
Yeah. Well, assuming that Brandon is out, which I believe he will be more out of precaution than anything else, even if he does clear the protocol, that means you're going to have Acosta, Paxton, and Jesus in the midfield triangle. Paxton playing the linking 8 role that he did against New York.
You mean
pretty well.
You mean his best position?
Yeah. Well, he's really good at that position. The one, not to get sidetracked, but the one thing I don't like about it is it takes away his inventiveness in the final third a little bit. He's one of the few guys that can hit gaps and break things and tear apart the defense of the other team. So, when you play him deeper like that, you get less of that part of his game. Now, he is a great aide, don't get me wrong. There's just a trade-off there, of his ability to link and his ability to cover and play defense and win balls and recover is, trade-off to what he can do in the offensive third. So, but with Brandon out, I think it's obvious that that's your midfield triangle. The back four is what it is. That's been the same for a long time now. That just leaves you the Barrios, Andresic, whoever's going to be left wing scenario. Now, the Barrios as the 9 that we saw in Seattle, I don't think that you'll see that in Colorado. That has to do with how deep of a block Dallas is going to play and whether they think like they need an over-the-top component and if there's space to exploit behind the back four. I don't think that you'll see that in Colorado. I think you'll see Andresic at the 9 and Barrios at the right wing, which just leaves you the left wing. And if Paxton's in midfield, then you're down to a coin flip of whether it's Badji or Mosquera. I would want to see Mosquera there the way he's been playing lately. I thought every game he's come in, he's been impactful and changed the game. In fact, I thought when he came in against New York, he was a big part of the second half change that made it work and make Dallas look like a dangerous team again. So I'm hoping it's Mosquera, but I don't know why it's been Badji all along lately. So we'll have to see which one of those guys you get.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess, it is, like I said, it is Badji's former team, and you always think maybe that's a good opportunity to let a guy get a game, but he's been so bad of late, and I just don't understand what his game is anyway. I don't know.
Even just based on the number of touches he's getting, it's like people aren't passing to him. You know what I mean? He's not part of the flow. He's not part of the build. Like the second half. No, I wouldn't either. But the second half pass chart for Dallas is like it's overloaded right. Even Santi was playing through the middle more than he was down the left. So, that may be a bigger issue of formational balance perhaps. But I just, the guy's not integrated into what's happening on the field. And so I can't imagine that it won't be Mosquera, except that it hasn't been lately. So, Lucci likes to stick with what's working.
Just to follow up on the whole Badji thing, part of the game plan would have been to get behind the left back. I can't think what his name is, Matriato or whatever. He likes to get forward and he kind of forgets to track back. He's, what Ryan used to be. And Lucci put Badji up against him in the first half, and he didn't stick to the plan. Switch Barrios in, and Barrios does it perfectly. I know one thing that Lucci said with Badji before is that he likes that Badji can squeeze inside and essentially make it like a second striker with, for Barrios to cross to, but, you can also put a traffic cone there and it would probably do about as much. I'd like to see Badji come off the bench, honestly. I think, against your old team, wear the defense down, give him the last 20 minutes and go on, this is your moment. Prove the Colorado fans wrong. Prove everyone wrong. Whether he does it or not is another matter, but, certainly it'd be nice to see Mosquera follow up from his substitute appearance last week with the start. Yeah,
I don't mean to keep beating up on Badji, but I've never understood what anybody ever, how he has gotten as far as he has. I only saw him a limited amount of time when he was with Colorado, and certainly now with his time in Dallas, it is not particularly fast, or at least he doesn't. If he has a lot of speed, he doesn't use it. At least that I can tell. He's not particularly skilled. He's not a good finisher. He's not a good header of the ball. He can't play with his back to goal. Is there a part of his game that we're just missing, or what is Badji's game, Buzz? Tell me, please.
Well, I think that's it. I mean, that is his game. He does. The two things that he has in his favor are that he's relatively inexpensive for a guy in the middle of his career. I know are you talking about squad building now? I'm talking about not why he's playing. I'm talking about why he's on the roster and why someone would take him. He's pretty cheap for a guy who's a veteran, experienced player that does produce some level of goal scoring. Now, it's not a high number, but he does get somewhere between 6 to 9 goals pretty much every season. It's not.
What is he on this year?
6.
Has he really has he scored 6 goals this year?
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
And his career pace is about a goal every 7 shots, which is not horrible. It's not good. But
it's just that he gets 7 shots in 3 games.
Yeah. I mean, he's not a prolific shooter. They're only talking about 219 shots as I look at his stats on his career. But every season where he's played 30-ish games, he's had somewhere between 6 to 9 goals every time. Now, is that your guy you want to be your number one guy? No, you don't. But if that's your second or third guy, that's not horrible. The problem is that Dallas has no number one guy. There's no 15, 20, 25 goal scorer here. So we all look at Badji and go, you suck. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's only by comparison. But I agree with you that I don't think he fits this team anymore. I think he may be used to when Oscar was first here, when they played a bigger counterattack, kind of counter punching style. But Lucci doesn't play that way, and Badji doesn't either. So, I'm with everybody else that I think it would be time to sit him. But there is a medium tier MLS value there. And this is a medium tier team, so bedfellows, I guess.
Yeah, I think to your point about the counterattack, or the lack of a counterattack now, that definitely was playing to his strength, kind of, allowing him to get the ball into feet on the edge of the area and take those last few steps in. What we kind of have now is he's either on the left or he's just kind of standing around waiting for it, and it gets in the box, and he has too much time to think about it and just blazes it over, hits someone in McKinney in the head, and
Okay, well, let's. Do we dare talk about scenarios?
Sure.
That was a very seductive way to say scenarios.
Well, I tried to dress it up to make it sound at least somewhat interesting because, man, I just feel like we've fallen so far. But if we're now at the point where we're having to deal with scenarios in the last 2 games of the season, and let me just say this: if somehow you, in playing Colorado at Colorado, albeit a team that is behind you in the standings, not being able to beat them and not beating Kansas City at home, who is already done and dusted, do you even deserve to be in the playoffs at that point?
No, if you lose these 2 games, you won't be in the playoffs.
Well, no, they could lose out and still make the playoffs. They control their own destiny for sure. But the way the results from Wednesday night played out, if I'm not mistaken, they in theory could lose both games and still make the playoffs.
Yeah, Portland would have to beat San Jose.
Yes, if San Jose lost twice, yeah, that's true. Because if San Jose ties one game, if they get 1 point, then they would have the tiebreaker against FC Dallas.
Okay.
So they only need 1 tie. So San Jose would have to lose out, and then Colorado would have to lose their other game. Because if Colorado beats FC Dallas and then Colorado wins again, then Colorado would be in. Because that would be then they would hold the tiebreaker over FC Dallas too.
And who is Colorado's last game?
Oh gosh, I just had this looked up. 2 seconds. Colorado plays at LAFC.
Okay, yeah. Well, but LAFC's already won the Shield. They'll probably rest some players. They don't really have anything to worry about. So that kind of shapes up nicely for Colorado at this point.
They could rotate their whole squad for all we know.
All right. Yeah. So the scenarios are what officially now, Buzz? Would you like to lay those on us?
Officially, yeah. In terms of the potential for Dallas to clinch, well, if Dallas gets 4 points in their last 2 games, they're in. That's all you need to know.
So the magic
100%.
numbers is the magic number 4. Any combination that adds to 4 in their end?
Yeah, a win and a tie, and they're in because San Jose plays Portland the last game. Both of those teams can't get 4. One could get some and one can't. They can't both do it. So if you get 4, you're in. You could actually clinch this weekend if you beat Colorado and San Jose loses, you clinch. If you beat Colorado and Portland draws or loses, then you clinch. And if you draw Colorado, you could clinch if, let's see, San Jose loses and Portland loses. So, it could be done as early as this weekend for Dallas. More than likely, we're going to have to go to that last game, even if you win, against Colorado. You need San Jose and Portland, one or the other, to pull the chute. And they did that for you on Wednesday, and they've been doing it for you all for a good stretch run now. So it's entirely possible to do it for you again. So, it'll be fun to scoreboard watch a little bit while you're watching Dallas play against Colorado.
And I guess the inevitable question is this much to do about anything? Buzz, you're the one that's closest to the team. Do you have any confidence that if, in fact, they get into the playoffs, they're capable of pulling anything off?
Well, that would depend a whole lot on who you get as your other team. You're going to be on the road. If you're going to Seattle, that's not very good. If you're going to LA, that's probably not very good. I actually feel like if you're going to Minnesota, you might have a little bit of a better chance. Or if Salt Lake manages to win their last two and you get to somehow, bizarrely, they jump way up and you get to go to Salt Lake, I think you kind of like your shot on those two teams. But the bigger problem is that Dallas is not a very good road team this year. I mean, they're 3-10-3 on the road. That's abysmal. So almost certainly, no matter who you're going to get, the odds are distinctly in the favor that Dallas will be eliminated, just because of how horrible they are on the road. But
right.
if you want to feel like you have a chance, I like my chances at Salt Lake or at Minnesota better than I do at LA or at Seattle.
And we now know the playoff structure. It's different this year. It's all single game elimination. Is there a play-in game? I can't remember. I was trying to look this up while you were talking, Buzz. Does 8 play 7 in some sort of weird play-on game?
It'll be 7 plays 2.
Oh, it does. Okay, is that how it works?
The number 1 has a bye, and then 7-2 or 3-6 or 4-5.
All right.
So that's why when we're looking at the standings, that's why I was mentioning the idea that you can't face LAFC. Right now, second place is Minnesota. But again, the parity in the West means that that whole Minnesota down to Real Salt Lake is 5 points to 2 games to play. So you could end up facing any one of the 4 if you get in. And maybe even if Portland goes on a run, you could maybe even face Portland. I don't know. It just depends.
All right, so I'll throw this one out at you. Knowing that you're going to be on the road, right?
Yeah.
Which of the teams would you most like to play at this point? Like if somebody said you could pick any team that's going to be in the playoffs with you, which one would it be?
Well, based on current form, I'd pick Portland. They're a mess at home right now. Yeah.
Say that again?
No, but he just said any team.
Oh, yeah. I just meant any team. Like now, I guess maybe I should refine that. A team that you're likely to play as the 7th place team.
Well, not Seattle. Dallas stinks there. I think I would, if I could pick, I'd probably pick Real Salt Lake. I think Dallas has actually gotten a couple of results at Salt Lake before, and my second choice would be Minnesota.
Interesting.
I think I'd flip that. Minnesota first, RSL second.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I don't know if either one of you have access to The Athletic and Paul Tenorio's shocking story today about the state of Major League Soccer playoffs in certain stadiums that may not be available during the playoffs. Have you read this?
No, I'm not aware of it.
Oh my gosh!
Is this the story that's been going around all year that New York City may have to play at the Mets?
Well, that's part of the story. So, yes, NYCFC is in a situation because the Yankees are so good this year that Yankee Stadium may not be available for much of the Major League playoffs. And if they do, they'll likely play their games at City Park. Is it City? What's it called? City Field?
City Field.
Yeah, City Field, where the Mets play, at least for the early games. The most worrisome is what happens to MLS Cup, because both City Field and Yankee Stadium could have events that would take priority over theirs. The Yankees playing in the World Series, and there's some other event that City Field's already booked for. So they could not play in either one of those places. And now the speculation is, could, in theory, MLS Cup featuring NYCFC be held at Red Bull Arena?
Wow.
In this weird scenario. But boys and girls, it doesn't stop there. Paul also reports that Seattle has some scheduling problems with CenturyLink due to Seahawks games. And the one that completely blows me away, Minnesota United actually has a third division game football NCAA gridiron game scheduled at Allianz Field that may take precedence over a Minnesota United playoff game unless the club is somehow able to finagle something with the football teams that they've already put a deal in together for.
Well, they did the contracts. I mean, that's poor planning on their part.
Well, I'm thinking if I'm a Minnesota United, if I'm a Loons fan, aren't you asking yourselves, well, wait a second. You guys thought we were going to suck so much this year that you went ahead and cut a deal and signed contracts to hold football games in our stadium?
Well, yeah, didn't everybody?
Well,
oh, wow.
But your own team?
Man.
Isn't that
Let's
crazy?
find out what the Hunts have got booked for November 10th.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
good question.
That's a very, very good question. Yeah, I'll read from this is Paul Tenorio's article in The Athletic today. Allianz Field in Minnesota is unavailable on October 19th as it hosts the Tommy Johnny NCAA Division III college football game between St. Thomas and St. John's. Should Minnesota United clinch a home playoff game, the Loons would have to play at home on the 20th on a field that is potentially showing the damage in lines from a college football game unless they can manufacture a solution with St. Thomas. So they'd have to move to a different date to get the game in, but then they'd have to play their one of their first playoff games in club history on a torn-up football field.
Good grief.
Oh,
Could be worse. They could have to play on turf.
And by the way, the Falcons also have a conflict with Atlanta United for the 19th, 20th weekend.
Well, right now, the FC Dallas only shows a high school football game on November 8th. So
Yeah.
November 10th is open.
All right, let's move on to other stuff. Buzz, you are the biggest nerd in the whole world. You went out and checked out some FC Dallas Academy in the big derby against Solar on Saturday, didn't you?
I did. It was I watched the 17s and the 19s. I did not watch the 15s who won like 6-1. I watched the 17s and the 19s who both lost 3-1. The 17s got run over. The 17s for FC Dallas right now is a big project in development. They are, at this time, not very good. There's lots of reasons why, and we could dive into that some other day perhaps. The 19s looked a lot like the senior team in that they let Solar score twice in the first 5 minutes.
Wow.
It was like, I hadn't even finished writing the lineup down, and I'm like, what is going on? It was just, I don't know whether they assumed that they were going to just be fine. But, you know, from then on, after Dallas woke up, then the rest of the game, it was 1-1, and the game was pretty even. Solar is, make no mistake, really good. I mean, that 19s team is half made up of, at their core, the defending DA champions from the 17s. But you know, the 19s were also missing, the FC Dallas 19s were missing players. I mean, that you have to remember that we're starting to see the evolution of these teams where guys are being signed and moved up. You know, they were missing 3 players. And you could even argue that they were missing 5 players if you include guys that are actually young enough for the 17s but play with the 19s all the time, like Jonathan Gomez and Dante Seeley. So, you know, there's a bunch of pros already gone from that team. So it's not as good as it was. But in this game, they were flat-footed, and Solar was the better team. And Solar's got a couple of guys on that 19 team and their 17 team that are going to be professionals someday. They're not going to come through FC Dallas because they're not part of the FC Dallas Academy. Bizarrely, FC Dallas owns their homegrown rights, so nobody else in MLS can sign them either. But, you know, there's a couple of dudes on those teams that should be playing at USL 1 and not be playing for Solar. So it's an excellent club. On this day, they were better than FC Dallas in both those games. So I didn't learn anything about anyone from FC Dallas that affected my opinion about them. Bailey Sparks for Solar is a guy that needs to be playing at a higher level for sure. So it was still enjoyable, and it was still fun to watch Tanner Tessman hit bombs on free kicks better than anybody that can for FC Dallas. And
yeah, you know, from that, you actually were tweeting out some logic about maybe his future position should be center back.
Yeah, you know, one of the questions with him, if you're concerned about a pro career in the center of the field, is that a guy that big can get turned by a really quick darting sort of player. So believe it or not, there is actually some thought that you can be too big to play in the middle, and he's well over 6 feet tall. But I think he's plenty good enough, and he would be a perfectly servable professional midfielder. But he is a good defender, and he can shield guys off really well, and he's got size, and he's good in the air. He can hit 50-yard passes on a dime. He can dribble the ball out of pressure. He can play ticky-tacky little bing-bing build-up play, and he can shoot from distance and score from like 40 yards out, all of which to me sounds like a modern superstar center back that could be worth millions. So, I think there's a chance that you should try that. What's it going to hurt the 19s or Tanner Tessman to play center back for a couple of months between now and whatever you're going to do with him next season in terms of pro contracts? I think it's worth a look to see if there's maybe a real future for him in that position, because one thing Dallas has not produced out of that academy is center backs. There's not been some good ones yet, other than Richards, but he obviously is out of the picture. So
yeah,
I think it's worth a look. I mean, I think the guy's got all the potential for a Lucci ball center back. I mean, certainly can already do anything Reto Ziegler can do, minus Reto's World Cup experience.
Yeah, the other thing that I was thinking about, your comments about the quality of some of the Solar players and that they should be playing at a higher level, and we don't have to do this now, but that opens up that whole crazy conversation about what FC Dallas's true position should be in this marketplace in terms of funneling players to pro careers and being an outlet for all academy teams in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But because of the competition and the way everybody kind of treats each other, and again, it's a two-way street, it just never seems to work out that way. It's far more adversarial than it ever possibly should be.
Yeah, it shouldn't be this way, but it is. If you wanted to real quickly use the current rules to do what you're talking about, the way you could do it was guys could take a gap year or a last year at the academy and come to Dallas for one season. Then they could go through that route just like Chris Richards did. That's the methodology you could use, but obviously no one in this market they're all at loggerheads with each other. Texans, Solar, and FC Dallas, all three. They're all three responsible. They're all three at fault. I mean, I wish it wasn't this way, but there definitely is, some antagonism between those clubs, and they definitely have played grudge matches. And in this case, Solar was 100% up for it and ready to, and came out gangbusters and blazing, and Dallas was asleep, and it cost them.
Yeah, well, good for Solar. And the other update was there was a bunch of local Open Cup action this weekend. Did anybody attend any of the games?
Our good buddy John,
of course he did.
Attended one of them for sure. I saw the score lines. Yeah, maybe we'll do a cup show at some point this winter. Enocitas from Fort Worth won. They beat. Who'd they beat? They beat Lone Star Republic, coached by Zach Lloyd. And then NTX Rayados, of course, beat FC Fort Worth. Rayados won, as they always do. And now you're going to have, basically, for me, the two best, we're going to call them amateur teams in North Texas in the Metroplex are going to play each other for the bragging rights to who's the best team in the Metroplex. And the last few years, it's been Rayados. Perhaps Enocitas can make a claim for that spot. That should be a good game. I'm actually going to try and go to that one. It's down at... that NTX field down in Branch.
Oh no! I got okay. Yeah. So let me give you a little background. So they are playing their game at Premier Park, which is the facility owned by the North Texas Premier Soccer Association, which is the men's amateur Sunday league that's been around literally since the 1970s. The league convinced its membership back in the late 90s to take out a giant loan, and I think it was close to $1 million to buy this mysterious plot of land down in Balch Springs. I'm telling you, Balch Springs is not a fun place to be on a dark Sunday night. And it's this weird plot of land, and it's a volunteer organization, and they had all the best intentions, but time and reality and cost and money, it is an absolute shambles of a facility. They have 7 fields, and only one of which is, and this is the field that they have scheduled this game on, is barely passable for Sunday pub league action. And I am shocked that they are playing a U.S. Open Cup qualifying game again on this field, because I believe Rayados played the game that they won last week on this same field. And let me say this before I get into this whole other piece. It's possible that Rayados wants to play there because it's such a huge advantage to them being used to play on what is really a giant carved-out piece of moonscape. Stuck in between a cement factory and people with guns who don't want soccer balls kicked in their yards when the ball goes over the fence. I'm not kidding. And so it's really shameful to me to find out that Open Cup games are being played there. And when I read that, it immediately dawned on me, here is a huge opportunity for Dan and Clark Hunt and FC Dallas to come swooping in as the good guys, right? Like, we want to be the guiding light for the sport in our community. We have all of these amazing soccer fields. We have MoneyGram. We've got Toyota Park. We've got all these fields. Why don't you guys come play your Open Cup game on them? And to the point where I'm thinking, why doesn't FC Dallas make those two facilities available for all of these local qualifying games for teams that don't have a proper field to play on? I beg the question, one, beyond, is there maybe a rule in the Open Cup rules that would prevent this from happening? But if, let's say there's not, man, doesn't that just scream goodwill and brownie points for FC Dallas if they did something like that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I agree with that concept completely. I don't believe there is a rule because we know Rayados has played at Richland College.
Well, they had to pay for that. They had to pay for that.
No, I know, but that just proves that you can play wherever you want to, that if you can get a field that meets whatever their minimum standard is. And if this thing in Bald Springs meets their minimum standard, I don't know what their minimum standard would be.
Because when they play all these Open Cup games, assuming you could get everybody to agree to it, could you imagine the opportunity to go to MoneyGram or up to Frisco and Toyota and have all of those Open Cup games being played side by side with each other?
That'd be really cool.
That would be such a cool scene for something like that. I don't know if that offends Dan from a cup standpoint, but I think it'd be cool.
Just mildly.
One of the things this club will need eventually, and a lot of clubs around the world have this, is what they call essentially an academy stadium, which is a small field that maybe holds like 3,000 people, maybe 4,000 people. MoneyGram would be an ideal spot for that. Whether you wanted to do it for North Texas to play in for a little while, it's that kind of small little facility where you could control the revenue, control the gate. And in a case like this, let a local team play in an Open Cup borrow it basically for free. And if you never went that route, just let them have MoneyGram for free, or if they wanted turf, Dr. Pink Stadium for free, or Adidas Field #1, the training field up there, and or that one's got a fence around it, so maybe not that one. One of the other training fields. There's no reason why you couldn't just let them play a game out there. And the goodwill and the press you would get from it would exceed the cost of whatever it would be to unlock the gate and let them in and turn the lights on.
I know exactly what the fields at MoneyGram cost, and I started getting. I'm very lucky that I'm getting to play in a men's over 40 league that just launched out at MoneyGram. There's a new open division, an over 30 and an over 40, and we've been getting to play out there on Sunday evenings and late afternoons. Dude, that is the coolest place to play. One, the downtown skyline is off in the distance, and you can see it so clearly from that position. And the coolest part about playing at MoneyGram, other than the beautiful fields, obviously, is the fact that you're essentially just from not being directly underneath, you're just off to the west of the landing pattern for Love Field. So as you're playing soccer, these planes are landing, and it's the coolest thing. It's a really great place. And yeah, in the original plans for MoneyGram, there was a mini stadium that was supposed to hold like 1,000 people that was supposed to be built by the city, but then they scrapped it. And yeah, it would be a great place for a little stadium like that.
Weirdly, they did excavate the land. It's just sitting there.
Yes, it is. It's primed. It just needs the structure, right? And we've seen some of these weird little pop-up stadiums lately. Didn't San Antonio build a pop-up stadium for the Scorpions back then? Wasn't that one of those weird little temporary pop-up constructions of stands?
I mean, their stadium's permanent.
No, the one before that, I think. I don't
remember.
There's a minor league team in Texas who either does currently or previously had one of these new, easy to assemble pop-up stadiums, and you can put several hundred people in each of them. I don't know. It screams opportunity to me, and on so many levels, it would be super cool. Okay, well, guys, thanks so much for all the conversation today. I guess we'll find something out. We'll know more. I mean, win or lose, things aren't completely locked in or doomed either way, depending on how Dallas plays. You'd just like to see the guys put in a get 3 points and get a solid win on the road. That would be massive going into the playoffs for sure. Well, Dan, thank you for your help this evening and all of your good insight.
Thank you.
And Buzz, thank you, sir, for all your hard work.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, FC Dallas fan. We will speak to you next week on another fun-filled edition of Third Degree, the podcast.
FC Dallas Curious.